Nigerian youths to get better opportunities as globalization report receives federal government's attention.
Nigerians make input into 2024 budget at Abuja Town Hall.
Trial of Boko Haram suspect resumes in Abuja.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the police reforms in Nigeria.
If you ask every Nigerian what they thought about the police, their responses may shock you. They could range from the bizarre to the incredible and even the ridiculous. But like they say, the police is your friend, and all friends must watch each other's back. Claire.
Indeed.
Watch my back.
I watch your back. Indeed. But that hasn't been so. And of course, the reason for cries and demands for police reform in the Nigerian police all over the country. And over time, it has been criticized for poor performance. I mean, that's the police. Not just for poor performance, but also for, corruption and most, unfortunately, human rights abuses. And this has led to several efforts to change the narratives by various administrations.
You're right. From the Admiral Murtala Yanko-led police reform team in 1989 to the presidential panel headed by Professor Tekana Tamuno in 1991, later in 2006, another panel set up by President Olusegun Obasanjo and chaired by former Inspector General of Police Mohammed Madami also carried out comprehensive work on police reforms.
Absolutely, and there have been, a number of other police reforms. But again, let's take you back to 2008. At that time, a fresh committee of experts led by another former General Inspector General of Police, this time Muhammadu Dikko Yusuf. We all recall the work done by the committee on Vision 2010. That's still on police reforms. And later in 2012, yet another police reform committee was also constituted. This time it was headed by, a former member of one of the committees, Pari Osayade.
The Nigerian Police Act of 2020 also ushered in some reforms which target an effective police service that complies with the principles of accountability and transparency, protect human rights and freedom, and also mandate the police to report findings of its investigations to the Attorney General of the Federation or state, as the case may be.
Let's not also forget, of course, the famous, the NSAS movement, which was also, protest against police brutality and all sorts of accusations leveled against the police at that time, But in spite of all the input from all the committees we've mentioned, judicial panels of inquiry, and even the, amended act of police acts over the years, many civil society groups as well as security experts have also submitted that the Nigerian police force has largely remained unchanged.
Yeah, that's true. They have pointed out many factors affecting effective performance by the Nigerian police force, to include inadequate articulation of its mission, legal framework, specialization of functions, performance appraisal system, duplication of policing agencies, weak oversight agencies, and
corruption. I mean, any other person could have guessed right, Demola. And just to say that the Police Service Commission, most recently has been working in collaboration with the Office of the IGP and, of course, Ministry of Police Affairs, to right the wrongs. But I mean, the wrongs are so huge that it could just be described as a flash of the pan. But as they say, a step at a time, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So these are some of the issues that will, inform our discussion on police reforms in Nigeria today on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak, and I welcome you very warmly.
We are transmitting live on the network service of the NTA from our Abuja studios. As usual, we will be taking highlights of morning news in a moment, some business news and newspaper review with Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja. I am Ademola Adeoye. For now, Frama Panyi takes the news. Hello, Frama.
Good morning, Ademola. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigerians. And thanks for joining us on the morning news. The federal government says it is determined to bequeath a country that is firmly on the path of prosperity to ensure youth empowerment and human capital development. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this when he received the management of the National Institute for Security Studies, NISS, led by the Commandant Ayodele Adeleke at the Presidential Villa.
To be together, trade among ourselves, it will be cheaper and more faster for us, and it will help our development as well.
The House of Representatives has organized a town hall meeting in Abuja to get the inputs of citizens and civil society organizations on the 2024 budget and appropriations process. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, at the opening of the citizens' engagement, expressed the commitment of the National Assembly to addressing the hardship being faced by Nigerians through a transparent and inclusive 2024 budget.
Making inputs and telling the rest of Nigeria is a new dimension of budget process.
I think we still haven't gotten it right in terms of ensuring that our budgets address the issue of wastages.
On our part, the House will review the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 to strengthen existing provisions.
And Nigeria's participation at the International Conference on AIDS and STIs in Africa, ICASA, ongoing in Zimbabwe, has further opened the country to valuable knowledge about the challenges and solutions to the HIV/AIDS pandemic on the continent. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, who stated this at a state dinner organized in honor of participating First Ladies at the conference, says she looks forward to implementing some of the sustainable solutions back in Nigeria. She said one of the strategies that will be deployed will be working closely with communities to address reoccurring issues and find sustainable solutions.
And shame, so AIDS shouldn't be a stigma to anyone. We've come a long way with AIDS. It's not just sweeping it under the rug. It's going to affect the next generation of young people.
At an interactive panel session which was held earlier, the First Ladies renewed their commitment to ending mother-to-child HIV/AIDS transmission and eradicating new infections by the year 2023. The First Ladies were also treated to the Zimbabwe hospitality and taken on the Zambezi River, followed by a visit to Victoria Waterfalls. The Zambezi is the fourth longest river in Africa and the largest flowing into the Indian Ocean from Africa. The First Ladies present include that of Botswana, Neo Jane Masisi, Mozambique, Dr. Isauru Ferrao Nyusi, the host, First Lady of Zimbabwe, Dr. Auxilia Mnangagwa, and Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu, who is accompanied by the First Lady of Ekiti State, Professor Olayemi Oyebanji. And the Nigerian Air Force has issued a formal statement addressing the misfire at Tudumbiri village in Igabi local government area, Kaduna State. The statement issued this Monday by Nigerian Air Force spokesperson, Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, stresses that the Nigerian Air Force has not undertaken any air operations in Kaduna State in the last 24 hours. The statement reads, news making the rounds, alleging that the Nigerian Air Force accidentally killed innocent civilians in an airstrike is false. The Air Force has not undertaken any operations in Kaduna State in the last 24 hours. While commiserating with the casualties, the Air Force says it is not the only military arm operating in the country. And some media organizations had earlier reported that villagers fingered the Nigerian Air Force in the incident, but the Air Force was quick to refute those claims, with sources indicating the armed drone belongs to the Nigerian Army, which is yet to address the allegations. The Nigerian Army is presently holding an aviation seminar, while the Kaduna State government is still expected to issue a statement after investigation. And meanwhile, Kaduna State government has commiserated with the families of victims in Tugarbiri community in Igabi local government area of the state who were attacked Sunday night. The Kaduna State government has received briefings on Sunday night's drone attack, which left about 30 citizens dead and others injured. The overseer, Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, stated this after a closed-door meeting. The state governor, Obasani, has ordered an immediate and thorough investigations on the incident. Federal government has resumed the trial of Boko Haram suspects in Kanji prosecution process phase 4 in Abuja. At the opening of the court session in Abuja, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, noted that the federal government in 2017 secured a total of 366 convictions. 896 others were discharged for lack of evidence, while 61 other cases were adjourned for further hearing. The resumption of the prosecution of terrorism suspects marks another step in ensuring the security and safety of Nigerians. The Attorney General of the Federation stressed that the prosecution is one of the processes of criminal justice administration, assuring that the federal government will continue to deploy resources towards the enhancement of its prosecutorial capacities. The Attorney General personally commenced the prosecution of the suspects at the resumed hearing on Monday, and the trial presided over by Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court. The National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu says the resumption of the trial is in line with Nigeria's commitment to rule of law, noting that his office will ensure the participation of all relevant agencies towards the successful prosecution of all suspects. And that concludes the news this morning. Claire and Ademola will be back with the rest of the program.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and now good news. MDAs are beginning to come together. They're beginning to synergize and strategize, and one of those will be the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI. It is collaborating with the National Bureau of Statistics to share data analysis and coordination. And also coming up on business news this morning, the FIRS says it has granted waiver on accumulated penalties and interest for outstanding tax liabilities. Alika Okbanachi Arwa will tell us all about it.
The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEITI, and the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, have concluded arrangements to sign a memorandum of understanding on data exchange, management, and utilization for national development, as well as coordination. This was the outcome of a meeting in Abuja between the Extractive Secretary of NEITI, Dr. Oji Ogbonnaya Oji, and the Statistician General of the Federation, Adeyemi Adeniran. The parts will define the rules of engagement on data sharing and management, access and deployment, as well as outline areas of mutual cooperation between NEITI and NBS on training and manpower development, improvement of information technology systems, and develop frameworks to enhance operational efficiency and data on beneficial ownership, disclosures to mitigate tax evasion, illicit financing flows, and terrorism financing. In the meantime, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has granted full waiver on accumulated penalties and interest for outstanding tax liabilities in Nigeria. The agency disclosed this in a statement issued by the Special Advisor to Zak Adedeji, Chairman of FIRS. Adedeji said the forgiveness on piled up penalties and interest was in recognition of the challenges many taxpayers have faced in settling their outstanding tax liabilities. Now let's take a look at Monday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Okpanachi, Arua.
Thank you, Alika, for the business news. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
And here we go. Chukstubo is right here in the studio. Chukwudi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Demola.
You look sharp and ready to go.
I'm always sharp and ready to go. Don't let me start blowing my trumpet again, because that's actually what the intention is. And please, this time around, let me remember and say, good morning, Nigeria. You know, I hardly say that. I don't know why. You pull me into discussion and I forget dear country.
Remember, you are a hunter.
It doesn't matter.
Hunters have no morning.
I'm a sharpshooter.
Hunters have no morning.
Okay. All right, let's start with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And below the nameplate, communication blackout hits Gaza as Israel deepens southern offensive. Fact check, ex-governor Aliyu didn't chase Boko Haram, Shekau out of Niger. Nigeria records 1.8 trillion surplus as foreign trade jumps by 60.7%. The story can be found on page 19. Army drone kills dozens of Maulud celebrants in Kaduna. Second bomb killed more people during rescue, survivors says. We buried 94, some mutilated, conveyed 66 to hospitals. Residents' account, JNI, Fitiano, community leaders seek compensation, incident unfortunate, military Kaduna government. The unfortunate story is on page 4. And below we have the bandits collect 6 million ransom as part of payment, free FCT chiefs' wives. Page 17. Why Nigeria's penal code remains unreformed 65 years after. The story is on page 26. NNPP disowns members denigrating Kwakwanso in Kano. That story is on page 10. Claire.
Yes, Demola, thank you. Quite unfortunate incident indeed. And it's the story that is running, through all the papers we have this morning. It's a front page. Our hearts sincerely go to the families of those who died. And just away from that story, which, like I said, is on all the papers, I want to take a look at the picture story on the front page of the Vanguard. And it's the picture story of the Vice President Kashim Shettima being flanked there by members of the study group of the National Institute for Security Studies, NIPS, who paid him, of course, a visit at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. And there you can see members of that coordinating group there. Just below that, while we passed 2024 budget for second reading, this is an interesting reading. I'm sure everyone would like to know the details. This is by Abaribe. Says the writers there, I've not seen lawmakers debating budget without detailed breakdown. Ningi. Now, Senate Appropriations Committee meets with MDAs, stakeholders and others today. Again, you need to pick up this paper and find out the details. Benue APC crisis. Ex-Senate President Jamade and others passed confidence vote on Aliyah. It's on page 13. On to some economic stories. Nigeria's trade surplus rises 47% to 1.8 trillion in Q3 2023. And just to take you above the nameplate for other trending issues, COP28, FG sponsored only 422 delegates. That's Information Minister. We know, of course, the reason behind this over the weekend. Allegations that more than 1,000, Nigerians accompanied the president, to COP28. Now, MFLA, Nigerians in US accuse FG of rights abuse. And okay, that's just all from the Vanguard. I'll quickly go to the Daily Times newspaper. If we have that, the Daily Times is also reporting the unfortunate incident that took the lives of more than 30 villagers in Kaduna. And the military, of course, has, accepted it was done in error, while, of course, fighting terrorists. Food security, about 50 million hectares of arable land uncultivated, says Agri Minister. And FG assuages fear of Adamawa Taraba residents over low-flying aircraft. And Delta fish farmers protest loss of 1.3 billion to vandals and thieves. I like to reiterate this one. Delta fish farmers protest loss of 1.3 billion naira to vandals and thieves. That story you can find on page 5 of the Daily Times newspaper. Now, again, just to let you know about this story, how new forex regime may affect 2024 budget implementation. Waleke, as FG sets to generate 298.4 billion from national asset sale next year. Again, how new forex regime may affect 2024 budget implementations. This is something I'm sure everyone will also be interested in. Chooks the boy.
Yes,
yes.
I'd like to talk about two things.
Yes,
but
please.
First of all, I want to express gladness that the federal government is responding to allegations that 1,411 persons went to Dubai, for the climate change conference. And the happiness I'm expressing is that the federal government considers it important that they respond to it. I remember the UPN, NP, and GNPP days when opposition was really, So it doesn't matter what the opposition says. Some of it could come under the realm of politics and all, But the fact that government feels that it owes Nigerians a response tells me democracy is not on very shaky legs too much on our climb. I like that fact.
Well, it's
Actually,
very important.
we discussed that
It's
yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, COP28, and the DG and the Minister of State, they clarified the issues there.
Yes.
The government delegation were not more than like 400 or
422. The minister
but
stated
a lot
that.
of people, many stakeholders and experts also went for the conference because of what they need to do there and the connections and the networking that they have to do in Dubai.
These are the people who sponsored them.
Yeah. No, I mean, it wasn't the federal government that sponsored
That's
them.
the important thing.
They sponsored themselves.
Putting the record straight.
Yes.
Yes.
Many business leaders, African business leaders,
sure.
Nigerian leaders, they all went there.
I like to say two things. One, it's when you peg it on the direction of democracy.
Yes.
I don't know, but it speaks volumes about the character of the present administration and, accountability to the people. We don't know what may happen after this present administration. So that the government is responding speaks much of the character and the behavior of the leadership at the moment. And then secondly, I don't know if it would have been much better if, when the presidency or when government is embarking on such trips, for accountability purposes and, to avoid such, speculations. Yes, speculations.
Wrong perception of what?
Perception, misinformation. You just as, the Minister of Information had done now, given breakdown of those who accompanied the president. If that can be done prior to departure, this is the number of...
Well, you don't get pussyfooted over, certain implementation of,
No, but it has... You mentioned,
yes.
you mentioned that...
Otherwise, by implication, you're saying that anytime they have to come out and preemptively say, this is the number of people we're sending.
When you were going...
That's ridiculous, if not ludicrous.
No, don't say it's ridiculous. It's a suggestion, because if it was ridiculous, then the misinformation and misinterpretation will not come out.
I'm saying there will be many more times, so...
Well, if
What's the second issue you want to discuss?
Sorry, Demola. If it will solve and prevent misinformation and disinformation, then it's worth doing.
So says Claire. Now, 50 killed in Army's air bombing of bandits. The Army, they're not denying that actually this happened. Therefore says we didn't have a hand in it. There's no point really anybody saying or talking about who done it. The Army has come out to say that it was all done in error. Two things usually happen on the field of campaign militarily. People can die from friendly fire, where your own troops even kill you, inadvertently. You could also have what they call collateral damage, where civilians become part of sweeping, insurgents, bandits, and enemies, But this one is a bit, it's really sad.
Really unfortunate.
But the fact that the Army has come out to say it was an error.
It was an error.
That I think is transparent enough. Let's work against.
We should work.
Coordinates should be properly, given, so that next time, if it's actually bandits we're going after, we drop the bomb where the bandits are.
Well, thanks, Chooks, for
what happens? Just Demola, so what happens? What's happened going forward?
I just said now that next time coordinates should be explicitly stated, and the intelligence has to be reasonably accurate. Human error would always creep into what we do in life.
Thank you,
But as much as we can, let's reduce that to the barest minimum.
Thank you, Chooks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chooks. That's all we can take on the newspaper review this morning. We take a break. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria. If you are just joining us, and it's live on the network service of the NTA. We started our conversation on police reforms in Nigeria. But before we kick-start the conversation, let's take this background report by Ibrahim Dan Hamidu.
For several years now, several administrations have taken up the task of rigorously reforming the Nigeria police force. In 2006, former President Olusegun Obasanjo took steps to reform the police. Later in 2008, by former President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, also made an attempt. Later in 2012, former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan also took steps to reforms in the force. In 2019, former President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, signed the Police Trust Fund Bill into law on the 21st of June to actualize the vision and mission of providing additional sources of funding and repositioning the police for better efficiency in their role of protecting and defending the citizenry. This mission is still on course to overcome the long struggle with systematic issues that hinder the effectiveness of the police in Nigeria, as well as how such issues erode public trust. As officers of the Nigeria Police put their lives on the line to save and protect citizens, security experts insist it is crucial to implement the reforms and sustain commitment from the government to transform the police force into a professional, accountable, and people-centered institution.
All right, then Hamidu there with the background report for us to kickstart our conversation this morning. If you've just joined in, you're right on time as we're about to introduce our guests. And the topic once again is police reforms in Nigeria. We have seated here Mr. Pomfa Alduwia. He's the director in charge of Department of Police Discipline, Police Service Commission, PSC. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Ademola.
Good morning. We also have Matthias Okoye-Uyoyo, who's the Deputy Director, Head Department of Reforms Coordination and Service Improvement. He's also author of the Critical Thinking and Policing. We're very glad to have Mr. Uyoyo with us.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Also joining us from our Jos studio is General John Tenlong, First Commander of Multinational Joint Task Force, former President of Alumni Association of National Defense College, and security consultant and advocate for police reforms. Glad to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Much there, Demola. Thank you very much, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning to you, sir, and welcome. It's good to see you also. So, excuse me, gentlemen, let me start with Mr. Uye, who is the director in charge of Department of Police Discipline, Police Service Commission. And I'm just wondering, from all that we know, since the creation of, Nigeria Police, we've had a number of reforms. Of course, the most recent by our president. We can't include that yet, So why is it that previous reforms to reform the police has not reformed the police?
Thank you very much for your beautiful question. We would not say exactly that it has not reformed the police. I would rather say it's work in progress, because from 1999, when President Obasanjo took over power, he introduced the reform led by Mohammed Damadami in 2006. That reform, among other recommendations, recommended the insulation of the police from political partisanship. The other recommendation by that committee is the centralization, or rather you call it decentralization, of the Nigerian police force. Of course, it also talked about the process for the dispensation of disciplinary matters within the Nigerian police force. Again, in 2008, President Yaradua, of blessed memory, introduced another reform. This time around, MD Yusuf was saddled with the responsibility. Among other recommendations also, the MD Yusuf committee recommended the establishment of the Police Trust Fund. That committee also recommended a tenure for the Nigerian police. And therefore, to this extent, I would say that the reforms have been ongoing. And we are already yielding, reaping the fruits of the reforms. Because there's a trust fund in place, not too far from NTA headquarters here. The chairman was a retired IGP. I don't know whether there's a change now, but I believe that there's still work ongoing. And amongst the things that the trust fund does for the police is the provision of vehicles that you see all over. The trust fund also supports the functionality of the Nigerian police force. So I would tell you sincerely that there are progress, and there will always be progress in the reforms.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ponfa, for that there are progress, and there will always be progress. You said that it's a work in progress. That is the reform so far. Yeah. Would you agree, Matthias, would you agree with the submission of Mr. Ponfa that the police reform is a work in progress? Because a lot of people have complained that despite all the various committees set up, for this reform, that nothing actually has been done with the committee's report submitted to the government. So what is your own thought on this?
Yes, I align myself with my colleagues' opinion that it is work in progress and there have been progress. Let's take the issue of the Police Trust Fund. This is a fallout of the MD Yusuf Committee report that there should be an establishment of the Police Trust Fund. Although there have been issues between both organizations, the Trust Fund and the Nigerian Police Force, when you engage them on how effective their interventions have been. But there's no doubt that there have been interventions, and that's a good development. And also, the amendment of the...
When you say there have been interventions, what sort of interventions are you talking about?
In providing infrastructure.
Okay, because that is one of the major challenges that bedeviling the police force. The issue of infrastructure, logistics, funding, and several others.
Yeah, the Police Trust Fund was meant to be a stopgap, to fill a gap in providing funding for certain critical areas where every part of the Federation supports the police. It's a Nigerian police force. So all of us are stakeholders in the Nigerian police force. So the Police Trust Fund is supposed to help fund those funding gaps. And whether they have been effective in delivering that mandate is when we engage the people that are beneficiaries of this, which is the Nigerian police force and the Police Trust Fund themselves. I think one of the areas that there have been challenges where members of the public here is, have they been really effective? And I think that has to do with maybe the procurement processes, which is another angle. But the government in itself, have they implemented the reforms by establishing that Police Trust Fund to address those funding gaps? Yes, they have. And then there's also the issue of the Police Act 2000, which was signed into law by the former administration. That is something that has been often overlooked, but it's a landmark document. It's a landmark document because the police now have something to work with outside the colonial administration laws that established it. And that is one of the areas that those reforms have advocated. And today we also could say the police is doing well, the police is not doing well because of communication. Those reforms also talked about us having the communications, the public relations arms of the police reorganized. And so today you can lay complaints to the police in the social media. The police has been adaptive to those changes. So those reforms are work in progress, like my colleague said, ongoing, and they have also been impactful.
Mr. Yo, thank you. And I don't know if General Temlong will agree with both of you here in the studio. Well, reforms, have been ongoing. There have been several, even before, the coming of the Tinubu administration. And the evaluation, the conclusion is that not much has changed. But from what we hear from Mr. Weab and Uyoyo. They're saying that reforms, are ongoing. Brigadier Temlong, do you think we have visible parameters, to think in the positive about these reforms?
Well, thank you very much, Claire. And unfortunately, I don't think we have much visible parameters or tangibles that we can say the reforms have really worked. If you started reforms in 1999 until now, what are the reforms actually all about? You carry out reforms because you want to change an institution to achieve better results. Can the Nigerian public tell you now that the Nigerian police is very effective? I think that's where we should be the starting point, not what the infrastructure you are putting in place or this thing. The change in the police force that you need properly is the personnel itself. You need to reform the personnel. You need to reform their ways of doing things. It is when you reform, because whatever you put in place, whatever equipment you bring, and if those who are going to operate those equipment itself do not have the right mindset, do not have the right capacity and the intellectual capacity to do that, the value system, how do they value life of Nigerians, then those sort of things will not work, because you can go and bring the most sophisticated equipment, and if the people do not value, if those who are operating them do not value lives, do not respond to calls from citizens as they are supposed to be, do not treat citizens humanely and respect their human rights, do not, see them as themselves policing, do not try to detect, do not try to prevent, always combat ready as if they are going to war against the citizens. I think that will not be what we want. We want a system. The reform is to make the system function better. And to make it function better is to function better in line with international best practices. Actually, we see policing all over the world. A while ago, there is no best practice, actually, like you say, because even in America, they are complaining about police brutality and the rest. But then, there are certain limits and there are accountabilities. Because if a police person goes overboard, there's accountability. There are body cameras that even record your actions, that even if you want, it can testify against you. So I think what we need to do actually is to look at holistically the personnel themselves. And in any organization, the most important this thing is the human capital. And that human capital must be changed. And that now brings us to the problem that who is going to reform who? Because from the caliber of those you have in the system now, the average Nigerian citizen see policing as if it's something standing on the road, extorting, not responding, being brutal and the rest. That mindset has to change. And then they are now recruiting, and who is training who? So you have to do something in a magical way, like what General Anjuma did to the Nigerian army when they took over the government in 1975. The Nigerian army was at its lowest ebb because we have recruited so many people who came with just about 2-3 weeks training to become officers, soldiers, and the rest, and they had been fighting the civil war. Coming out from the civil war, we had an army that was not properly trained, not properly laid. And he found out that those who are there to be able to train were not enough, do not even have the requisite qualification, do not have the requisite competence and the rest to change the system for him. So what he did was to go and get the British Army training team, which came in because it has been a standard trained and a professional army, to come and retrain and reprofessionalize the Nigerian army. That was a landmark change that actually put the Nigerian army in change. I think we need to do something in that line to actually throw away our national pride, for any reason or prestige, and say, look, let us get a training team to come and train our policemen and show them and change the value system. Because if you put an inspector, an ASP now, who has risen up with this value system that they have now, to go and start training a recruit and come out, what is he going to do? Because he is going to be his role model, he is going to be his mentor, and what is he going to mentor him on? Sometimes it's the absence of values, it's the absence of honor and integrity that is affecting this system. So you need to change the complete system and get it out, and that way, then you're now talking about the superstructure and the infrastructure. How will it hold that? You give yourself tangible objectives, goals that you...
General Temlong, thank you. Thank you. We'll return to you presently, but let's bring the conversation back to the studio here. And we have, of course, is of the Police Service Commission, and we know the responsibilities and mandate of the commission. But let us look at, the Dan, Mandami's report, as well as the MD Yusuf report, and the yes. Those are three committees, and if you look at the terms of reference, right from the MD Yusuf to yes, down to Paris report, they all have the same terms of reference, indicating that it's just doing the same thing over and over again. So are there specifics, apart from the police trust, are there specifics that touch on the, like General Temlong said, that touch on the personality, the conduct, the character, character and integrity of the Nigerian police?
Thank you very much. Again, as I said earlier, one of the reforms recommended by the MD Yusuf committee is the fact that the police, the disciplinary procedure need to be fast-tracked, need to be improved upon. And as Director of Police Discipline, I can tell you that there's improvement. Improvement to the extent that cases are dealt with as regular as they come, so that people don't suffer unnecessarily. If you go out in the street today, you will notice that police, the conduct has greatly improved. Look, compared to 10 years back, you would agree with me that there are level of improvement, because now you are sanctioned. When you commit anything wrong and the report comes to the commission, you are dealt with dispassionately.
Are there available cases that you can point,
Oh yes, I will cite 3 instances recently. Commissioner of Police, he was manning a command. When we mean command, we mean he was manning a state. I would not mention the particular state, but he was a commissioner of police in charge of a state. And he committed something wrong. And the report came to the commission. And the commission used the big stick on him, reduced him from the rank of commissioner of police to deputy commissioner of police, meaning that he has lost the position to hold that state. One case. There are other cases at the lower level. And of course, there is a celebrated case that we all know. Interpol and the rest of them, one of the officers is still on suspension. The case is ongoing. The Police Service Commission is not looking the other way. It will take the appropriate step at the right time. There are also rewards for people who have performed creditably well. And I will give you instances also. Only recently at the commission's meeting, 3 officers in different locations within the country, in the course of their duty, they lost their lives. And the commission says, because you are doing this, whereas other people are punished for the same case, these ones are rewarded. We're giving them posthumous promotion to their family to encourage them. Generally speaking, I would say there's improvement, because even at the recruitment level, what the commission is doing, and you are aware that just on the 26th of last month, we closed the application for recruitment into the police force. The improvement from the reform is the fact that the people that are coming in, we now weed them, we clear them. Previously, you can have somebody with 3 credits, 2 credits coming into the police force. Now we insist on having 5. It is part of the recommendation of the committees. MD Yusuf, Damadami, Pari Osayande. You are also correct to say that there are similarities. Because of course, Damadami's committee was headed by Mohammed Damadami. When you come down to MD Yusuf committee, Damadami was also a member of that committee. Pari Osayande himself was also a member of that committee. Therefore, it is just the extension of the work that was done by Damadami's committee. MD Yusuf took it to a level, and then Pari Osayande. Amongst the recommendation for Pari Osayande's reorganization committee, which was established in 2012, is the fact that the police institutions need to take a general overhaul, renovation work, and then the process for promotion in the police. You needed to go back for training like you have in the armed forces before you are promoted to a particular level. You know, the staff college in Jos is for that purpose. They go there for refresher course preparatory to their promotion to the next level. It is part of the reforms.
Mr. Wuya, let me just interject you a bit, because General Temlong raised a fundamental issue which has to do with the issue of training, proper training, which is a major challenge of the force right now, the police force. So in what areas, because he gave example of what the military went through during the time of General, he mentioned the name, I've just forgotten now. But there is need for the police force to be properly trained, because that is a major issue. Because in the issue of handling equipment, in the issue of dealing with the civilians, is the police doing enough concerning professional training?
It will always be work in progress, as I said. When you talk about the training for the police, you recall that I just said from the recruitment process, there's a deliberate change for the people that are coming in. So for us, it starts from there. What
about the people that are already in the force? Because if you are bringing in fresh hands and the corrupt ones are still in the system, they are likely to pollute the new ones that are coming in.
Correct. But let us understand one fact, that these police people operate in a system. And the system here, I'm talking about the Nigerian system. And there's a basic challenge that everybody knows that we are confronting with. So the police cannot be an exemption when it comes to certain factors that are visible for everybody to see. But like I said, from the recruitment process, we want to improve on that. If you recruit the right people, training will be less. However, if you recruit the wrong people, you will need more to develop them into what you want. The training are in stages. Okay. I would say that it is enough training that they're getting, but I wouldn't say that there's no training at all. So there's still room for improvement. And that will take me to the point of funding. Okay. How are the police funded? It is a challenge. I know that government come in, government go out, everybody tries to improve it to a level. I believe that one day, we shall get there. But for today, funding is one of the challenges that we have.
Funding is always a challenge in every sector. In every sector, Mr. Wuya, thank you for the issues that you have raised and clarified. But Mr. Uyo, again, all of what he said, may just appear like a drop in the ocean. It's only beginning to happen, because if you look at the policeman, out there in the street, if you take a close look at his physical appearance, when you compare him with other policemen in even neighboring countries, you will know that the Nigerian policeman It's a policeman in need.
Yes, you're quite right. The Nigerian policeman is a policeman in need. And that's where the issue of funding comes in. Have we provided all he needs to function accordingly? That is the question we need to ask ourselves while still demanding from them that we should provide everything they need to a certain level for them to function effectively. We also, like General Temlong spoke about General Danjuma bringing in the British to retrain our military personnel. The Nigerian police force have been known to establishing police force in other countries, especially the West African region. If you talk about the Sierra Leonean police force, the Liberian, and the up to Sudan, our police force is at the forefront of establishing this police force coming out of insurgencies. And those police force today are reference points. So it's not that our police force does not have the capacity to reform itself. Have they been given all to retrain itself? We don't need an. I'm not being this thing holding on to that. The Nigerians, others can come. Holding on to our pride that we should invite others. We also have the capacity to reform ourselves, giving the right opportunities to reform ourselves, and that is the right funding. I'm talking the issues of training.
Okay.
Is there adequate provision to train every policeman along the right line? That's the question we should ask ourselves. If we are talking about, for instance, human rights training, we have to make the provisions for every personnel to have the opportunity of having those basic training. Have we provided the manuals to reach every section? Those are also issues that come into play when you're talking about the reforms.
Okay.
That's why funding is a critical item in the issue of reforms.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's noted there. One thing that you said that is important is that our police force, when sent to other countries, they perform excellently well. But here in Nigeria, they don't display such excellence. Is it a reflection of the society? Because people have argued that the police that you have is just a reflective of what the society that you have. Is that true?
You said it all. They perform better in other places because they are given the tools to perform well. And when it is here, if they don't have the tools to perform, to do their jobs, they certainly wouldn't.
Okay.
Why is a policeman collecting money? Those are issues you ask yourself.
Okay.
I know it is wrong, it's corruption. But sometimes, if you look at them, the road users that pass and give them money also know that those people are performing a function for them being at that place. Have we taken care of them to be in that place that they are? So they are susceptible. So we should also stop them from doing what they are doing. We should have a way of eliminating corruption in the process by reducing contact with them and corruption. Those are issues we should also know how to deal with. How do we reduce their contact with corruption?
Okay. Sorry. Before we go back to sorry,
I have a question
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. General Temlong, I know that you've been listening to the conversation here, and the issue of corruption is what Uyo just raised now, and which people have argued that is the kind of police that you have in Nigeria is reflective of the kind of society that we are in. How do we begin to change the mindset? I know that you talked about the need for professional training and how it was done in the Nigerian army. What would you suggest should be done in this case?
Well, thank you very much. I think when we usually talk about reflection of a society, is yes, is there, but I don't think that's the essence of you being trained. That's the essence of you being specially set apart to do certain things, because if you are a professional, then you don't go about demeaning the uniform that you are wearing, demeaning your pride and the institution you are in, and start collecting money. When people talk about society, yes, society, but why are you training that man? You are setting him apart and then giving him certain values that he's supposed to be. But if you don't have the correct person who has given him, let's call a spade by his name. If you bring me who has been collecting money and I've been receiving returns from the lower ranks, then you say I should train the person who is coming in. And then the whole system of being in the police or armed forces is that you train and mentor. And mentoring is bringing people out into a system that they should be able to perform like you or even better than you. Things that they see in you. So what are they seeing in yourself? You see, we need a lot of innovative thinking out of the box to address these issues. If we start continue giving excuses, we will never get out of this quagmire. Look, my friend, the chairman of the police commission, is a very good officer, a very good friend of mine, and I've been talking to him about the police reforms, and he understands what we're talking about. That definitely we need to go beyond what we are doing. We need to, you see, when you start talking about giving people pamphlets or on human rights and the rest, those do not work. You need to talk to them and make them understand what human rights is all about. Because the whole society itself, where you are getting the man from, that's why you are training him, because you are supposed to completely bash him, mold him, make him into clay, and then bring him out into your own image that you want. That is the essence of training at the depot or at the academy, because you are removing him from being a raw civilian, either making him a paramilitary person or a police person and the rest. For the military, you want to make him a military man. So that's what makes the difference. If not so, where are you getting them from? You're not bringing them from Korea or from China. It's Nigerians that you are molding them. So that each institution has its own character and values, and which you must try to instill in the people that come in. Now, what I want to talk about corruption specifically is that you cannot reduce contact of the police with the population, because they are policing the population. Rather, they should even have more contact. You see, the mistake we made, and we were still making till today, is that when the colonial administration established the Nigerian police force, they wanted to keep them apart from the civil population, to use them against the population. And that's why they established barracks for them. Go to America, go to UK, are there barracks for policemen? The policemen live with the people, they police them. The only place you can have barracks, those are the quick rapid intervention force, the mobile police force, which is supposed to be the kinetic arm of the police. That is the level of policing before the calling over the military. So you need them in one place that you can move them to intervene in a situation. But the ordinary policeman is supposed to live with the citizens and then police them, because outside, the military police live in the barracks. So why are you keeping policemen in a barracks separate from the civilians that they are policing? How do they detect crimes? How do they see people doing things? In an environment, you see people living beyond their means. These are things that the policemen living in that area will start looking at it. So I think we need to go beyond giving excuses for what is happening, we must hold the bull by the horn and say, look, we need to change. And then the police leadership, what they are doing, I quite appreciate what the IGP is doing, because I read somewhere that he had to go to Kogi State to see what policemen did to their colleagues. You know, when I raided the chairman's house or one chairman of one political party or campaign DG and killed 2 policemen there, picked their rifle and lock up people and the rest, the IGP went there when he got that reply. So I think that's what we need to do. And I want to tell my brother too, Ponfa, that look, move to the CIDs of the various state commands. Come to Jos and see what is happening in those CIDs. How will the civilian population be friendly to these people who maltreat them there? Go and see what is happening in the CIDs. We need to do, you are doing a good job, but move beyond looking at these high-profile cases. Move in without telling them, and see even the stench there, and see what is happening to the people there, and see the people that they even lock, those they even charge without any concrete evidence. The extortion that goes on there is unbelievable. So I think we need to go beyond these ones. Tackle those serious ones and deal with them. They serve as a deterrent to others.
Jonathan Lang, thank you. You've touched on a very important aspect of this conversation, and which also borders on the oversight mandate of the Police Service Commission, that is community policing. And I'd like to ask Mr. Wuye if that so far has been effective, and it's also the reason why the Police Act, I think 2020, was established just to decolonize, the Nigerian police. Prior to that time, the police force was tailored along the colonial, pattern. In those colonial days, force was the weapon. They could use the police to suppress any uprising, any agitation. That was what the police was principally all about during the colonial period. And then we inherited that platform. We inherited that system. That's why you see most of our policemen, use brute force, and violence. But the Police Act 2020, was meant to look at that aspect, democratize the way the police, conduct their activities and all that. And community policing is one of those areas. How are you oversighting the police in these very areas?
Again, thank you very much, Claire, for your question. And let me respond briefly to my big brother, General Temlo. We thank him sincerely for the recommendation that we should take steps to reach out to the stations without notice. That is something we'll take serious. Coming back to the issue of community policing, yes, the basic idea of community policing is to ensure that the community is part of the process. Again, part of the recommendation that the reforms has brought on board is the fact that at the process of recruitment, who are these people? And if you can take a look at the recruitment form that is filled for the ongoing recruitment, you would notice that from it, the community leader has a place. He has a role to play. That is in the process of the recruitment. At the end of the training, they are also required to be posted back. If, for instance, I'm from AMAC in the FCT, and I got enlisted into the police, upon my training, I'm required to come back to the FCT. If I'm not posted to my immediate community of Jikwai, I should be taken closer to maybe Karo or somewhere within the community. So these are my people. These are people that I know. These are people that I know their way of life. Probably they know my parents. Probably they know my background. They know everything about me. So my behavior is also controlled, because if I do something as a police officer that is outside the normal, then the tendency is that I could be reported to my parents, I could be reported to the community head, or could be reported to the authority.
Is this a new step that the PSC is injecting, via this recruitment?
Oh yes, it is something that we have brought on board. So you are required, even the form that you are filling, the community leader needs to endorse it for you. We are doing so to control some of the excesses. We are also doing so to ensure that not the wrong people are brought on board, because largely, from what General Temlong seemed to be saying, it is training. We can't take training in isolation. The recruitment process is also something we must look at holistically. You recruit the right people, then you have the right people to work. If you recruit the wrong people, definitely the result will always be wrong. So the reform has brought quite a lot. On the side of the commission, of course, you know that along the way, there have been issues between commission, police force. That is behind us now. With the new leadership in the commission, we are moving forward. With the new leadership in the force, we are moving forward. There's collaboration. There's a recruitment board that is put in place. The chairman is headed by a commissioner in the Police Service Commission. The secretary of the recruitment board is from the Nigerian Police Force. We have also drawn membership from the Ministry of Police Affairs, membership from Police Trust Fund, membership from the Federal Character Commission, and then the critical members of the society, so that everybody is on board from the beginning, from the recruitment process. Of course, the commission also oversights in the areas of discipline, and that's my area of specialty as the director in charge of police discipline. I have just mentioned to you a few things that we have done.
We will come to this, because discipline is a crux.
It is important actually, but it's also heartwarming to know that the police is collaborating with major stakeholders, especially the community leaders and all that, because from what General Temlong said, it is very vital for the police to live within the community. It helps a lot to correct a lot of anomalies. Now let's come to Yo-Yo. Now the issue of low morale of the police and motivation is also a major issue that people have talked about. That earlier my colleague talked about the issue of low morale of the police and all that. So what do you think can be done in this reform process to boost their morale?
Yes, one of the agitations of the police in recent times is that they should be removed from the contributory pension service.
Okay.
And the last administration, there was considerable work towards doing that, because having served your country honorably as a policeman and retired, I've seen a lot of retired policemen who come to you because they feel you are part of them, and then they lay their complaints to you, and how the contributory pension scheme has affected them negatively. So they should be able to draw a pension scheme that is equivalent to their counterparts in the armed forces.
Okay.
When you look forward to having a comfortable retirement, having served your country, it will reduce corruption, because you won't have that fear to grab, to save for a rainy day, because the government has already prepared for your rainy day. So that should be an issue, a reform issue that should be looked into. Yes, the contributory pension scheme was a good scheme. The government thought of it to manage the problems that were coming up from the fraud in the pension system. But if we have to look at the police and look at what they do, and also look at what their counterparts in other related military and paramilitary service get, or the military get, we should be able to place them alongside. If the military is not part of the contributory pension scheme. Why subject the police to it? Those are issues we should also look at. In the
when you talk about issues of some corruption, they are very good policemen that are also receiving very low income, but they are not corrupt. There are a number of them. We can count them. So these bad eggs that you're trying to make excuse for, maybe not well paid, they're not the only ones not well paid. So there must be something. As a critical thinker, when you speak with them, how do you analyze their behavior, their psyche?
You see, we are talking about deterrence. It's a very critical factor if you want to have a corrupt-free Nigerian police force. Are there consequences for actions?
Exactly.
And that is where the Department of Police Discipline comes in handy. And we have made it in the Police Service Commission as an oversight body. Recently, the chairman of the commission set up a complaints monitoring unit where members of the public, in line with communications now, social media communications, telephones, where you can report and actions can be taken on your reports. So that's why I say the issue of deterrence. When the public has a platform that they can report policemen, and when policemen know that there are consequences for actions, then certainly the issue of corruption, you have effectively tackled it substantially.
How do you build confidence in the people that do not have confidence in the police to even report, to get to report?
That's the process. The process is one, there is a place they can report.
Okay.
That's the first step.
And that place is?
The complaints monitoring unit.
Of the Police Service Commission. You need to say it so that people
the
know.
complaints monitoring unit of the Police Service Commission is a place you can report. Before now, we had our investigation department. But those processes are the paper process, the long-drawn processes. But the complaint monitoring unit is the one that was recently established by the chairman of the Police Service Commission. And it's instant.
What makes it different? I mean, what
makes it different is that, unlike complaints you write, you get to have somebody to write to complain, this person did this. This you can just complain. You can you can call. It's a 24-hour helpline.
Did the complainant need to go there physically?
No, that's why I said. That's why I said it's
an IT driven.
It's an IT driven. That's why I said it's a help desk.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a 24-hour and it will operate 24 hours. You can call in. You can send in an email, and your complaints will be dealt with.
And Demola, we are sure that it will be received and dealt with and attended to.
I give you my assurances.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Oyoyo, for that your contribution there. We'll take a break now. The conversation continues shortly. Stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and our conversation this morning is on the reform in the police, Nigerian police. We still have our guest in the studio, and also we have our guest in our Jos studio. But let me go to Jos, where General Temlong is. I want you to speak to the issue of the politicization and interference of the police, especially by the politicians, because Nigerians believe that the politicians are in a way manipulating. The political interest is so obvious in the police system, leading to compromise in its independence and its effectiveness. This we do not see in the military. So how do you think this can be addressed?
Well, thank you very much. And I want to commend my friend, Mr. Arase, because I saw in the last recruitment process that they put in place that there were no special slots for politicians. And I think that's very commendable. And if he carries it through, that should help. What has been so disturbing for me is that you see a lot of our politicians recruit their thugs into the police force. And then at the end of the day, some of them even have almanacs with those chaps that they have recruited. Or you have a day that they go to greet them, and it's thrown all over on the social media. This senator, this, or representative, this, have recruited these people, he has empowered them, he has given them this. And they are creating a cult of followers who see their, who are loyal to them as against the Nigerian police and the Nigerian state. And you know, because of the system that you are trying to post them now into their various localities for the sake of community policing, these are the foot soldiers they use during elections. And I think this is what they have put in place now is fantastic. That should be able to start coming. What now remains is to deal with those who are already in the system and depoliticize them to make them completely loyal to the Nigerian state. I think that should help. And once you are able to do that, then their influence during elections or even after elections, as they go about terrorizing people on the streets and the rest, will reduce. So I think the whole thing comes down to professionalism. Once you have a professional police force who should be able to actually demarcate a line between the thin line between politics and professionalism, then that should be enough to actually help us go through. And that will actually be a function of training. And to address an issue that my friend Mr. Oyo raised there, you see, let us not militarize all the institutions of state. There's a tendency that we are militarizing the whole institution. In fact, I even saw last Saturday I was at a burial somewhere and I saw Boys Brigade behaving as if they are military. And I sat down with General Agwai, and he was said that I said, no, it's the whole Nigerian state. They played national anthem before they took the corpse of the person as if it was a state burial, state funeral. You see them, everybody carrying sword. I see even the ones that they trained here in Plateau, they said this thing. There was officers carrying sword and the rest. I mean, those sort of things were completely militarizing the state. What we need to do, yes, is to give them some basic training to get them disciplined. But when everything you want to compare with the military, I think is not fair. The military as an institution is completely different from the rest. And that's why you have an option to go into the military, to go into a paramilitary force. Now, for the police, it's a special case because even by the Police Act, they could be drafted in to go and perform military duties. So I think we should need to do some innovative things. Claire raised a very important point. There are very honest policemen today with the amount of money they are being paid. So it doesn't mean, let's think beyond this. Yes, everybody needs a living wage. People, members of the National Assembly are receiving a humongous amount of money. But are we not seeing corruption there? It boils down to the person. So if you even ask their money today and say each of them, if a constable takes ₦1 million today, and if the man has tendency to corruption, he will want more. Maslow's law, actually, of hierarchical demand requires more. Because the more you get, you need more. So I think we need to deal with the person. We need to deal with the human being and get our values right. And it is important that the government pays everybody a living wage, not what we are receiving now, a living wage. I think that should help us. But let's stop militarizing the society. Let us stop politicizing the institution of states and let them be professional. And I want to urge the Police Service Commission to do a written test to them. There are people who carry certificates that they cannot answer because there are miracle playing passing centers. They give you 10 credits, so 8 credits, A's, but they can't write a simple letter for you. You can't speak single word for you, add anything for you. So you need to do proper screening and scrutiny. Don't use those papers as the yardstick. No. Let them carry out certain tests in those areas. We do that in the military, and we have seen out a lot of people with A1s, A2, A3, and the rest who could not write a simple letter. So I think you need to do beyond those numbers of having 5 credits and the rest. No. People have to answer their certificates, not just holding those certificates that they hold. Thank you.
All right, thank you, General Temlang, for your response. And again, the ball is back to the court of Weir. He talked about, very important issues there. But I'd like to also ask what the commission is doing about the issue of administration of criminal justice, because we know that there are a number of human rights allegations against the police from, brutality, from extortion, corruption, to even those in the prison, that have been denied bail, that are languishing in the prisons and thereby contributing to congestion of the prisons. I mean, that is justice denied. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I'm wondering if, as much as Nigerians are wondering, if there is ever anything like bail is free, because it is never is free.
Thank you for your question. Again, before I respond to the question, let me say a little about what General Temlang said. When I was making the introductory statement, I did mention that one of the reforms is the fact that the police need to be taken away completely from the politicians. But as we have all agreed here, these police are also part of our society. They come from a community, they come from a family, and so on and so forth. So some of the points made by General Temlang are things that the commission is also looking at. Okay. And one of the major steps that the force, and I must commend the leadership of the force, that if you have stayed with a politician for a number of years, no matter how closely related you are to that politician, you should be changed. Going forward, you should be taken away to another beat, because you must agree with me that some people have become so friendly with their bosses that the madam wants to go to the market, somebody is carrying her bag, and a policeman in uniform, a policewoman in uniform. That is something that the police and the commission is frowning against. And I think that we will continue to sensitize members of the police to see the need to stay clear away from politicians or politics generally. Now, coming back to the issue of criminal justice, of course the reform made far-reaching recommendations with regards to that. And if you say bail is not free, for instance, to us in the commission, we believe bail is free, unless it's proven otherwise.
But Nigerians,
Nigerians
will tell you that bail is not free.
Nigerians will
get to the station, they will tell you, well, we don't have biro, we don't have paper.
I was going to come to that. Okay. That sometimes when you go to the police station, for instance, to report a case, in the middle of the night, police don't have time to operate. If you call, for instance, there's something happening within Area 11 area here, and the station is in Maitama, for instance, they are expected to attend to you. No matter how late, no matter how early in the day, they are supposed to come. But take, for instance, there's no fuel in the vehicle. How is the police supposed to move to attend to you. So when you come and he says, oh, I need to fuel my car, it is legitimate that he's asking that question, although it is not you. It is not you that should provide that to him. But he has a problem, and he's just sharing with you a problem that you could be of help so that he can be attended to at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
I see that as part of the challenges. You also go and they say, oh, I can't write. I don't have papers, you know, and he needs to attend to you. It is a legitimate, it is a genuine concern that he probably has expressed. But that is not to rule out the fact that there are people who take advantage of the citizens.
You know, Mr. William, it's as if you're not, you know, abreast of what happens. It is not this small money you're talking. Sometimes it's fixed amount. They tell it to you wholeheartedly. They're not telling you, you know. It's like a charge.
What I would suggest is that if we have cases like that, for instance, if you say, I don't have biro, and somebody says, take 500 naira, I don't think that is.
Why would the police station not have a biro?
Well,
it's ridiculous.
There are things that are realistic. Sometimes.
It's ridiculous.
But if it goes,
or a piece of paper,
or a piece of paper,
if it goes outside the normal, then I would suggest that you make the report.
Okay, what is the normal?
The normal is that when you walk in, the scenario I've painted to you, if you walk in and someone says, oh, sir, I would gladly want to do this, but I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. So you would know what is genuine.
Okay.
You will know what is sincere. But if somebody says, I don't have fuel, but you need to provide me 100,000 to buy fuel, you know that that is not normal. But if you say, oh, how much fuel can it take you to this? You know, 5,000, 3,000.
Mr. William, I think you need the commission may also need to follow up on this, just like General Tem Long said. Maybe pay, you know, unscheduled, you know, inspection visit, because what you're saying, what you're saying is not what happens.
We'll take note.
The thing is that they tell it to you.
We'll take note of that. We'll take note of that.
They tell it to you.
But I also want to use this opportunity to tell Nigerians that you can also make a report.
Okay.
You can make a report. There is a Department of Investigation. There's Department of Police.
I wish we could have your call numbers.
The CMU, and I'm still calling on my office to send that number as soon as possible.
Okay, so that we can display it.
Oh, yes.
Okay, let's bring in Uyo now into the conversation. You have been listening to the points raised by the two speakers, but let's look at the issue of the police and technology now. And I think he spoke about it earlier on. I mean, the use of technology, adopting and utilization of modern technology, you know, to check some of the challenges in the police force. Do you think that the police is well trained enough for them to be able to adapt to this use of technology to fight crime?
Yes, the police is evolving just as crime is evolving, and the police, to a considerable extent, is now moving towards community-led intelligence policing.
Okay.
Recently, they set up the new FIB headquarters, a cybersecurity section, and all that. So those are issues that they are using to grapple with the evolving nature of crime. I feel that the police is moving towards that, and they are also handling those issues. But one of the problems of the police is that its best works are underreported and its worst works are overreported. So that is one of the challenges of the police. And as Claire asked earlier about what is the Commission's oversight functions in issues like the administration of criminal justice system. My colleague took notice of the issues raised by General Tem Long and will take them back to the Commission, and that has to do with effectively monitoring the cell units. If you look at the Dan Madami report, like he said, all those reports are same movements Damadabi, MD Yusuf, this thing. They talked about the National Human Rights Commission effectively visiting those cells and reporting and visiting those cells. I haven't seen the report of the National Human Rights Commissions on cell visitation in the commission before. I think this collaboration with these our sister agencies in the oversight functions is also key to effectively reforming the police.
Okay.
And then in our oversight functions also, we have a policy on death in custody. And where a suspect dies in custody, there are consequences for the people that were there, I mean in the station, that those things happened. So we also have a policy recently on the issues he raised about insulating the police from politicians. Recently, the commission, some couple of months ago, the present board that just elapsed, and the chairman of the commission, they came up with a policy on tenuring of postings. So you cannot be somewhere forever. So that also is a way of insulating those persons, that these postings are for 2 years, renewable after 2 years. If you perform, although the police also had a convention that certain postings were also tenured, but we had to cascade it down to all levels so that we can effectively insulate, because you can't stop the politicians from having those policemen around them, but we should also be able to say for how long will you have them so that they don't become part of you.
I have somebody from Lagos, that sent me a message now. He said, Claire, please, can you ask your guest in the studio, why is it that police people in uniform have turned to downfall drivers, calling for and carrying passengers like commercial drivers? I feel disgusted and disgrateful when I see them. It says, I see them at bus stops most of the time, using private cars, but on their uniforms, especially at Berger or in Lagos. In Lagos.
Yes,
yes. So, I don't know.
All right. Again, I would ask that we have a proactive leadership in the commission.
Okay.
If you have come across any such scene, just use your phone, snap it, and find a way of communicating it to the commission.
Okay.
The CMU number would be made available before we leave here, I hope.
Hopefully, because we're almost
we're almost there. But before we go, let's take a parting point from General Temlong. General Temlong, we have been talking about this police reform now. What will be your final parting shot?
Well, thank you very much. I think police reform is fundamental to criminal justice system. It's fundamental to the safety and security of the citizens of this country. What I urge the police and the Police Service Commission to start doing more is that we need to put more boots on ground. We need to professionally train our men. We need to use technology as a force multiplier. And that training the policemen, they have to be ahead of the criminals. It's not just what we're saying we are interested, no. Because they must be a step ahead of the criminals. If not, they can't detect and prevent crimes. So I believe that what we need to do is we need to fast track what we're doing, especially in terms of personnel, recruiting the right caliber of people and putting them more, because the number of policemen that we have are greatly inadequate. They are not there, they're not motivated. And then the amount of resources that they send to divisions, I think the Police Service Commission should start checking on that too, because they are very inadequate. What he's talking about giving, asking for biro is not that they don't have the money. The last time I checked, Sometimes they get up to 50,000, 60,000 naira per quarter, and it can't even fuel the vehicle, let alone provide stationery and the rest. So I think something has to be done to up that this thing. Even though I know local governments and the states are helping, but it is mandatory and statutory for them to help so that they provide some of those things, because the Sir Willing Commission report specifically stated that they are providing services to the states and the local governments, so they must help in providing some of the logistics and funding the policemen. Thank you.
That's your points there, and I think that it is well noted. Mr. Uya, what would you say? What would be your last, point here? In particular, whether, just like you said, if you are collaborating with, because I know that a lot of state government and local government are, just like we have in Lagos State, we have police trust fund here and there to assist concerning the issue of lack of adequate funding for the police.
I'm sorry. You ask trust fund. What do they even do with the? If you look at the vehicles, state governments donate vehicles to to the police. Before you know it, oh my goodness, you should see this.
Anyway, because of time, we are out of time.
Just to recap that, yes, the police is not where it should be yet. The reform hasn't taken us to the peak yet, but we're on our way there, and one day we shall surely get there. The leadership in the commission is very, very pragmatic, and the budgeting process, as we speak, is ongoing. And the chairman is working very hard to ensure that we get something out of the normal, so that the funding can be improved upon. When we have sufficient funding, we can go out and carry some of our functions.
Mr. Pomfa, I'm sure this is just the first of in a series of conversations we'll be having, with police service commissions, just to update us on, what you're doing, so that we can have a new, reformed, and indeed informed policeman.
And when next you're coming, come with the numbers.
No, we'll definitely get the numbers.
We'll
definitely get the numbers. That's the core numbers for the public to use when they have issues. So, Pomfa Audu, we are Director in charge of Department of Police Discipline, Police Service Commission. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And Matthias Okoyo, Deputy Director, Head Department of Reforms, Coordination and Service Improvement. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's also appreciate General Temlong, a friend of the house. It's always a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Always mine too. Thank you.
All right, let's quickly take some sports now from our sports desk.
Nigeria won their first game at the ongoing Under-17 African Nations Cup Volleyball Championship with victory over Cameroon on Monday at the Indoor Sports Hall of the Moshood Abiola National Stadium. Sunday, Akabsin's girls had lost to Egypt 3-0 in the opening match, but were able to bounce back with a 3-1 victory over Cameroon. Meanwhile, Erling Haaland could face a possible FA charge after taking to social media to criticize referee Simon Hooper following the dramatic 3-0 draw against Tottenham Hotspurs on Sunday. Haaland was booked by the official for dissent on the pitch after he raged following Hooper's failure to play advantage after a foul on him by Emerson Royal, with Jack Grealish bearing down on goal. A furious Haaland was then involved in a spat with Spurs midfielder Giovanni Lo Celso as he left the pitch before continuing his tirade on X. Asked about Haaland's reaction after the match, City manager Guardiola described it as normal. City have now drawn their last 3 Premier League games. The treble winners are 3 points behind leaders Arsenal in the league standings.
All right, that's sports from our sports center concludes Good Morning Nigeria for today, as always. And before I forget, today is Chukwudi's birthday. We forgot to wish.
Today? Oh, no wonder.
Yes, all right. Cheers to the boy. Here is wishing you the best of your day today from all of us here. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.
And I am Ademola Adi. Thanks for joining us. Join us tomorrow for another wonderful edition. Thank you.